So what's up everyone, in this video we're discussing passage number 2 from Cambridge IELTS number 17. So I'm not going to be doing anything for further, just explanation and that's it. So passage 2 consists of how many questions? We have two types of questions. Question number 1 is the first thing that we want to know is you may use any letter more than once. This is a matching information. The second thing is a classification, which and the third one is sentence completion. All right, sentence completion. So this one is so this part you will not really do it first, because once you read the first paragraph, you will come back to these questions and refer to them. So let's get started. A reference to a type of tomato, that can resist a dangerous infection. Resist means to prevent, to defend a type of tomato. That means a wanted tomato. Explanation of how problems can arise from focusing only on a certain type of tomato. An explanation of how problems can arise from only on a certain type of tomato plant means there is only one. A number of examples. So you see number example of plants. So there will be several. They will be naming several plant names that are not cultivated at present but could be useful as food sources. All right, a comparison between the early domestication of the tomato and more recent research. So domestication of early and currently. A personal reaction to the flavor. Personal reaction means there should be a note about a person giving his or her reaction about a flavor, about the flavor of a tomato. Now, on the other hand, what I'm gonna do here is that we have four names. So first of all, before I go further, I would really like to highlight the names. So we have George Kudla. They come in order. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So what you have to do is that list of researchers George, or I don't know how to spell that because it comes with J. George Kudla comes first. Second, I think the Gao has to come as the second. As you can see, this is the second. Excuse me. Let me choose that once again. You have Gao. So you have 1, 2, and then we have to find Joyce Van Eck. Joyce Van Eck. We have to find that personnel. I'm not sure where he is. Personally, I can see the flavor. I found the flavor. So Kudla's team. Another essential word here we have. Now, Kudla. Again, they are quite tasty, says Kudla. A little bit strong and very aromatic. I think I've already found the question number 1. I mean, the first answer to answer number 18. That is as C. Because in the C it says a personal reaction. Okay, excuse me. So I'm so sorry. We're back again. So now personal reaction equals what is that? They're quite tasty, very aromatic. Tasty and very aromatic. I'm writing the paraphrases because once you find the information, there has to be a paraphrase. Because if you cannot find it, you have to be concerned about the answer. Now, Joyce Van Eck. We did not highlight Joyce Van Eck, but there we go. We found it. Now we need Jonathan Jones. Where's Jonathan Jones? There you are, Jonathan Jones. Finally. Now, we're gonna read domestication of certain plants could allow them to adapt to future environmental challenges. So again, reading is all about vocabulary. Once you can understand let's name it as, once you know the definition or the meaning of a word, it will be pretty much easy for you to navigate through the answers or through the passage as well. For example, here, environmental challenges, if you paraphrase it, you will have climatic changes or climate crisis or whatever all these kinds of sentences or words or collocations, even sometimes phrasal verbs, all right? So the idea of growing and eating unusual plants may not be accepted on a large scale, So on a large scale means people cannot eat it, all right? People cannot accept it as edible. It is not advisable for the future direction of certain research to be made public. All right, to be made public, that means they have to hold a secret. Present efforts to domesticate one wild fruit are limited by the costs involved. So you have to find the word that is related to finance, or maybe it's some sort of word: money, cash, sponsorship, everything that is related to the word costs. So in reading, it's like basically once you find the word, then you have to just think of different kinds of words related or maybe correlated to that word. For example, if it's costs could be it could be money, costs costs of lives, for example, of people. People have to contribute themselves to maybe domesticate or cultivate a certain plant, right? So humans only make use of small proportion. A small proportion is a positive, not of small proportion, but a small proportion, which is a positive way. That means enough number. But if it's without the word a, without the definite article, indefinite article, of course, that means small proportion would mean it is kind of very limited. It's like in a negative way. Maybe you can just find it in the grammar. Now, moreover, an undesirable trait such as loss of something may be caused by mutation in a tomato gene. And mutation of tomato gene. By modifying the one gene in a tomato plant, researchers made the tomato 3 times its original. So you can see 3 times its original. Here, one or only a type of tomato which was not badly affected, and was rich in vitamin C, was produced by a team of researchers in China. Basically, you can see this. The question here, the sentence completion comes last, and sometimes you can navigate it as well. Sometimes they come. If the question is the very last, there's a high chance that it will come with the very last paragraph of the passage. For example, I'm gonna try to navigate for the word China. If it comes, if it is at the very end. So I'm gonna find the word China. If I can find the word China, I don't know if I can actually find it. If I will not be able to find it, there will be a high chance that I will be able to find it somewhere in the middle. Or there we go. We find the first one. So the team in China redomesticated several strains of wild tomatoes with desirable traits lost in domesticated tomatoes. And this way, they managed to create a strain resistant to a common disease called bacterial spot race. So here, as you can see, I found two answers. So a common disease, talking about one disease that is known as bacterial spot race. So here, what is like a reference to a type of water that can resist a dangerous infection. So therefore, which can devastate yields. They also created another strain, so a strain resistant, so which can devastate yields. They also created another strain that is more salt tolerant and has higher levels of vitamin C. So first of all, I'm gonna write option number C. Option number C. So it's a type of tomato that can resist a dangerous infection. Dangerous infection is a common disease called bacterial spot race. It is infectious. It could infect people, right? And then the another answer here is that a type of tomato which was not badly affected by salt. So tolerant means it can withhold itself. It can defend itself, not fully but partially. All right, and then let's get started. Let's continue. So it took at least 3,000 years for humans to learn how to domesticate the wild tomato and cultivate it for food. And now 2 separate teams in Brazil and China have done it all over again in less than 3 years. So here we can already find 2 answers. Answer number 1 here is that because it says a comparison between early domestication. Early domestication is like the 3,000 years of it took at least 3,000 years. 3,000 years is early. Now is referring to a present. So there's a very high chance I'm gonna highlight that as option A. Now, moreover, this approach relies on the revolutionary CRISPR genome or genome or maybe probably genome editing technique in which changes are deliberately made to the DNA of a living cell. Allowing genetic material to be added, removed, or altered, the technique could not only improve existing crops but could also be used to turn thousands of wild animals into useful and appealing foods. Useful and appealing foods. A number of examples of plants. No, not really. Useful as food sources, no, but somehow it's kind of close, but it does not really give us the types of plants. This fast track domestication could help make world's food supply healthier and far more resistant to diseases such as the rust fungus devastating wheat crops. This could transport what we eat, says George Kudla, and moreover, he says there are 50,000 edible plants in the world, but 90% of our energy comes from just 15 crops. 15 crops from 15,000 from 15 crops, they take 50,000 plants that are consumable that you can eat. So here, a small proportion, if you remember, George Kudla is going to be A here. A small proportion means just 15 crops. We can now mimic the known domestication course of major crops like rice, maize, sorghum, or others. Now there we go. Here, a number of examples of plants that are not cultivated. I don't think that is the answer. Let's move along a little bit more. Then we might try to domesticate plants that have never been domesticated. Wild tomatoes, which are native to the Andes region in the South America, produce pea-sized fruits. Over many generations, people such as the Aztecs and Incas transformed the plant by selecting breeding plants with mutations in their genetic structure, which resulted in desirable traits such as larger fruit. But every time a single plant with a mutation is taken from a larger population for breeding, much genetic diversity is lost. Okay. Much genetic diversity is lost, and sometimes the desirable mutations come with less desirable traits. For instance, the tomato strains that grow for supermarkets have lost much of their flavor. Oh, okay. An undesirable trait such as loss of flavor. Flavor is with if it's with O, I mean with U. In American, you can just American English is without U. So, a mutation tomato gene. So it's desirable mutations. You can see the paraphrases here, very close. By comparing the genomes of modern plants to those of their wild relatives, biologists have been working out what genetic changes occurred as plants were domesticated. All right. Yeah. Let's read a little bit more. We found the first one. 3 times we did not do that. Kudla's team made 6 changes altogether. For instance, they tripled the size of fruit by editing a gene called fruit weight. There we go. We found another one. They tripled the size. The size, as you can see, and there we go. The answer. I'm not just gonna waste time giving the numbers, or maybe I can just write 24 here, so it's easy for you to navigate. So then. We're not left a lot. They're quite tasty, says Kudla, a little bit strong, very aromatic. Here, moreover, we're going to read Joyce Van Eck. So, while the historical domestication of tomatoes reduced levels of red pigment, lycopene thought to have potential health benefits, the team in Brazil managed to boost it instead. While tomatoes has twice as much lycopene as cultivated ones, the newly domesticated ones has 5 times as much. All right. I think here have lost much of their flavor. How problems can arise for focusing on a certain type of plant? Only a certain type of plant here is that pea-sized fruits. Incas transfer the plant by selecting the plant. There's a particular plant that is wild tomatoes. I think this is kind of B, and it's talking about an explanation of how problems means that it can lose flavor, it can reduce the flavor, so genetic changes occurred as plants were domesticated. Maybe wrong, We will see moreover. So the team in China were domesticated. We read that as well. Let's read Joyce Van Eck. Or we didn't read Gao though, by the way. We can now mimic the known domestication course of major crops. Okay. Let's read a little bit more then. What did Joyce Van Eck say? Joyce Van Eck says there's potential for this to be commercial crops, but she adds that taking the work further would be expensive because of the need to pay. You see that? Because of the need to pay. Already here we can find the answer. Because of the costs involved. Said by Joyce Van Eck, which is C. Great option. Now, moreover, Jonathan Jones said what? He said this approach could boost the use of many obscure plants, says Jonathan Jones of this blah blah blah. The 3 times already have their eye on other plants that could be catapulted into mainstream, including foxtail, oatgrass, and cowpea. By choosing wild animals that are drought or heat tolerant, says Gao, we could create crops that will thrive even as planted worms. There you go, planet worms. Planet worms means environmental challenges, says Gao. Is it Gao? Is that Gao? Yes, it is Gao. Gonna take that. Option B. Fantastic. But Kudla didn't want to reveal which species were in his team's sights because CRISPR has made the process so easy. Anyone with the right skills could go to their lab and do this. Made public, Kudla said that. Kudla, so looks like he's a very recluse person. They don't like sharing, I guess. The idea of growing and eating unusual may not be accepted on a large scale. Who said that on a large scale? Okay. Large scale. So again, 15 crops. We found it. What else we were left with? A number of examples of plants that are not cultivated at present, but useful as food resources. I'm not sure of that. So a little bit more. We did this part. Now the problem here is I'm not reading it really carefully. It's not that I'm not reading it really carefully, but I'm not reading passages, the paragraph fully. So I think the idea of growing and eating unusual plants. Over many generations, people such as Aztecs, okay. No, that's not that. So what else Jonathan says? Since we're lab, but it will be hard for new foods to grow so popular with farmers and consumers. Oh, there we go. Farmers and consumers that they become new staple crops, he thinks. Who thinks this? Jonathan Jones thinks about that. So it's going to be D for us. We completed that officially. Now we need we did C, A, B, C. We need only this part. 16 are not cultivated at present, but could be useful as food sources. But I here think that the 3 times already have their own on the other plants that could be catapulted into the mainstream, including foxtail, oatgrass, and cowpea. By choosing wild plants that are drought or heat tolerant. So I think that's probably 16 is gonna be paragraph E, most probably. But we will check. We will check that. You will check it as well. If I made any mistake, guys, make sure to comment down below. So other than that, we are basically finished. There you go, guys. So it's really easy to do that once you know the vocabulary, once you know the locations of the answer. Is really easy to go. So once again, explanations. So you have matching information, right? You just read the sentence. You just read the sentence. You don't have to search for the paragraphs. What you have to do is that you read the first paragraph. For example, paragraph A, you read it, and you'll just see if any of these sentences, any of the information stated in these questions is kind of is similar to the text that belongs to a particular paragraph. All right. So the other question is that you can see is the classification. You may use any letter more than once. You have to be very careful for that. Because most of the times, if you see this particular instruction, you may use any letter more than once. There's a very high chance that one single paragraph or one single name can be used twice, but that is not always. But 95% of the time, it happens. Then, so what I did actually here is that I first of all highlighted the names, so it's easy for me to navigate, and then I started reading the single quotes, which sometimes even talks about the, like, let's say, the main idea of a paragraph. So it is easy for me to kind of find the answer for matching information. However, for 24, 25, and 26, it's really easy. I mean, sentence completions were always easy, and I think 99% of the times they're always easy to do that. But here, if you didn't know the meaning of the word tolerant, for example, you would not be able to find the answer for not badly affected, tolerant. All right. So there you go, guys. Once again, thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, make sure to comment down below. If you yeah, and if you think if I made any mistakes, again, yeah, you do comment down below. Other than that, yeah, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next episode.